radiating from the Lone Star State and stretching from coast to coast and border to border. This is On Radio, the weekly download from your family of companies: CMS Wireless, Enertech, ET Tower, Legacy, and Mountain Wireless. Welcome to On Radio.
Maybe go into a little bit more of like what that process looks like to come up with the regulations or the safety gear and how you choose the specific safety gear, and what does that process look like?
Yep. So in some cases it starts with, on an annual basis, we have a safety and training summit, right, if you will, and we bring everybody in for a week long. And in these cases, we've done it 2 years in a row, and there's no reason to believe we won't do it for 2023 as well. We come into this with a strict agenda, with a review, a certain portion dedicated to reviewing new equipment and PPE that's going to either, one, be better for the individuals out in the field in terms of eliminating risk, or two, it's going to be more user-friendly, right? Which ultimately goes back to number one. Then we also have a time dedicated to reviewing our training policies and updating current our curriculum and content, including videos. And then there's the portion in which we all love so much that'll put just about anybody to sleep, which is the standards, right? The standards, and going through and making sure that everything that we do in the basis of what we do abides by the federal regulations and the different state mandated regulations. A lot of those, we utilize them as a baseline, but as a company and as an industry, we've never just settled for good enough. So much of what we do, it says, okay, OSHA tells us what the bare minimum requirement is, or WISHA or whatever, right? They tell us what the bare minimum is. But why would we want to just be average, right? Like, why would we want to just be like everybody else when we can make something better? And that kind of goes down to the whole, one-tivity, if you will, is, we're bringing things together, different programs and different abilities, and we're maximizing on those different abilities within the different family member companies and pulling them together. Safety is the same thing. So it's a very in-depth process that unfortunately does not happen overnight. Yeah. But the end result is awesome. The products in which we're able to, and the service we're able to provide to the family member companies in the long run is phenomenal.
So I guess that kind of brings us to like what does that end result look like, and how does it benefit our people when it comes to the end of the day? How does all that work, which is necessary, how does that translate out into the field to help our guys?
One of the more recent initiatives in which we're working on is one, safety. So beginning January 1, all safety personnel are going to be moving to the Ontivity organization. And this isn't like a mothership type move or anything. Really, honestly, and I don't want this to be taken out of context, but my ultimate play was for the field safety inspectors, which we're now going to be rebranding as field safety advisors, because we don't want the negative connotation around inspectors, right? We don't want people to feel as though they're out there to inspect and find something wrong, right? Which goes back to the safety police thing. But ultimately, what we're wanting to do and what we found over time is that we have a lot of great safety professionals within our family of companies. And in some cases, more predominantly in the central region, we may have a field safety inspector or now a field safety advisor that would be driving right by one of our family member company crews going to visit another crew that was within his particular silo or within his particular family member company. An example. We have Enertech Resources has an office in Houston, and so does CMS Wireless. Well, we had some field safety inspectors, or let's just say safety professionals within Houston for Intertech that may be driving right by a CMS job site to go look at another Intertech crew. But because we didn't have this one safety approach, we kind of have these different silos, right? So we found that there was a lot of wasted effort, time, and money in not being able to have that individual stop in with these other different family member crews. So that's one of the things in which we're working on to help improve what it is or the service in which we provide for the men and women out in the field. Other things are taking and trying to streamline and standardize the training across all the different family member companies. A lot of our safety professionals serve dual roles. Not only are they safety professionals out in the field, but they also are the ones in which we lean heavily on to execute our training. So trying to move more towards a quarterly training and provide that training on a routine basis that is the same every quarter gives our operational team leads an opportunity to plan in advance and let their customers know, hey, we have training coming up in this, this next quarter, and plan accordingly. Now we can schedule those resources to come in and take that training on known intervals, right? Yeah. Another thing that we found that was really successful that we were able to implement at some of our family member companies is being able to train a quarter in advance. So, for example, Ethan, if you had a tower climber rescue training and that training was lapsing in, say, December, right? Well, we would bring you in at the beginning of Q3. So we would actually be training you in advance of your certification lapsing, therefore maximizing your time in which you can be in the field and the things in which you can do in the field. So not only am I making sure that you're up to date and you're current on your training, but I'm also eliminating a potential headache for an operational team lead should you get assigned to a scope of work and, oh, by the way, my certs are lapsed, right? So that's something that we are really proud of within our family member of companies is the training in which we provide and the different resources in which we have available at our disposal. And taking that and being able to leverage that from a one safety approach to all the different family member companies makes things so much easier for us to do what it is that we do best out in the field.
Which is make lots of money, right?
Well, that's what we towers. Do. At least make our customers happy. Let's go for that, right?
Yeah, we'll go for that. Yeah, yeah. All right. So let's move on to like some. I'll call it the fun section, right?
Okay.
So, do you have? And I don't know. Maybe this isn't the fun section, but what do you have any stories like from the field of like some crazy things that you've come across either before you were a safety manager or while you were a safety manager that you're just like, oh man, like, or things that maybe were but now have changed due to the fact that they are just things that were very crazy, unsafe or whatnot?
Yeah. So I've had, over the course of the years, we've all seen things that we wish we could unsee, right? And we've all been part of situations that we wish we weren't a part of. But two stories that come to mind, two life-changing moments for me. I'll never forget it. We were working off of Interstate 20, and I've shared this on our weekly safety calls before in the past. I came from the tower side of things, and we were working off of Interstate 20 just right west of Fort Worth. I'll never forget, it was exit 426 off of Interstate 20. And there was two monopoles there, and it was right behind a skeet shooting complex. And I was working on the side, I was working up on the top platform. And this particular platform was at the very top of the tower. And it was a nice little crow's nest. It had the top rail to it and that bit. And this was back in the old AT&T days when we had to, we were diplexing and duplexing the TDMA with the GSM. And we were doing like all this crazy stuff. And we had to weatherproof. This was like back in the day of actual tape and butyl weatherproofing. So if that doesn't date me, then I don't know what will. But using tape and butyl, and I mean the whole thing where you had to like back wrap your skinny tape on like a little piece of, you know, like number 2 solid, just where you can like get it into these really tight locations as you're trying to tape up the butyl. We were near done with the job, and that's the way all this stuff always works. It's like always at the end of the day, or always at like right when you're trying to wrap up the job. That's when something's going to sneak up and bite you in the rear. Anyways, so I'm sitting up there, and there was another gentleman up there with me, and he had finished his sector, and he had taken his photos, his down tilt photos and that bit. And I was there sitting in the corner, and I was finishing up weatherproofing some duplexers and diplexers and that bit. And he was like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and go down. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll finish up here. I'll take photos, and I'll see you on the ground. So he went down. He was cleaning up, getting the truck organized and that bit. And lo and behold, I finished up, and I was getting ready to take my photos. And I stood up, and without thinking, I just took a step backwards. And I was going to kind of get an overall view of that corner of that apex of that top hat. And next thing I know, my back foot felt really, really, really light. Like real light, like nothing there. And at that point, before I knew it, I had, you know, just like excruciating pain going up my back. And my arms were out kind of like a chicken, like doing the chicken dance. And on one side was one part of the grating, and on the other side was the other part of the grating. And my shin of my left leg had just scraped all the way down the grating. That individual went down. He climbed down, and it was the older style top hats that have a hatch. So it opens up, and you climb down like a little 8-foot piece of ladder, and then you transition over to the wire rope safety climb system on the monopole. And he didn't shut the hatch. And I didn't hear it, and I didn't know it, and I just got tunnel vision, and I was working. I became complacent, and I stepped back right into that hole. And it happened so fast that before I realized what happened, I was already wedged like a pretzel within that opening, and I could just feel the blood going down my shin, and my back was all scraped up, and it was a very eye-opening experience. And, you know, you like to always think, like us macho guys, we like to think, oh, if I were ever to fall, I'd just grab the tower, you know, or I do this. Yeah. Good luck, right? Good luck. Because it happens so fast, you won't even know what happened, and the damage will already be done. So, you know, kind of lesson to be learned from this is, you know, always be aware of your surroundings, and always ensure that you're tied off and you're doing everything it is that you're supposed to be doing. The moment you start getting comfortable and getting complacent is the moment something bad is going to happen. And so the trick is to identify when you're falling into that mindset and to disrupt that, or to change it, right? To mix it up a little bit. So that's one. I had another near miss story take place where there was a crane failure. There was actually, I was talking about this just the other day. There were some folks unloading, or a crane company, and for the sake of this podcast, I won't say the crane company name, but they were unloading a shelter off of a lowboy, and their front left outrigger failed, and it literally flipped the crane over. And the near miss there was actually a couple individuals that were holding some tag ropes that were off of the corners of this shelter. It was a fully dressed out AT&T shelter. And when that shelter, that crane failed and it was starting to roll over, there were some guys right within the drop zone of that shelter. And I'm jumping up and down, screaming like a little girl, like, get out of the way, you know? And like, they didn't know what was going on. So they just took off running. And luckily nobody was injured as a result of that. But, you know, those are two real close calls. And, you know, I'm sure there's many more that we've had in stories of looking back and going, I can't believe I did that. But those are the two that really come to mind that really, really impacted me a lot as a crew leader and, you know, as working within this industry.
Wow. No, those are such good reminders, right? Because it's one of those things where like anything can happen, and just having that constant situational awareness, I'm sure, is just sometimes it's the fine line between, like, your life or your, injury or whatnot. So that's really good to remember for everyone. So I think we're basically at the end of our time together. And man, Cameron, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. It's been really, really good to, in a way, get to know you a little bit better, but also be able to share with our people the cool work that you're doing over there at Ontivity, and just trying to help our people continue to be safe.
Awesome.
So
I appreciate the opportunity, and it's great to have folks like you that are with the organization that can help get our messages out there and show the world what we're all about. So I appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, man, we're looking forward to hearing the call tomorrow for the safety call, and sure, I don't know if you'll be on that, but we're looking forward to that.
Yep. It's going to be yours truly hosting it tomorrow. Don't be late.
Oh, yeah. All right, everybody. So thank you so much for joining us on Radio. This is Ethan, the Hankster. And since Jim says I am out, but I'll just say stay safe, everybody. This is the Hankster.